Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bill Brannick, Director of Technology of the Office of Catholic Education. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Happy New Year. It is great to have you with us this evening. We are certainly excited, not only that it's 2019, but more so that you've taken the opportunity to be able to join us for our January edition of the Connected Educators webinar series as we continue to look at the Google Level 1 Certification Bootcamp, specifically tonight, looking at Google Sheets. Throughout the presentation tonight, we certainly encourage you, as we do always, to be able to connect with us across our social media platforms, but also to be able to use the hashtag AoP Tech in any of your posts, posting any of the experiences that maybe you have similar to what is being presented this evening, but also anything that you hear that really strikes with you that you want to be able to work on, to look into a little bit more deeply, or to be able to try within your classroom. Our agenda this evening, just a moment, we will place ourselves in the presence of our Lord. We'll talk about our archive and then jump into the presentation. As we get through the presentation, we'll then take an opportunity to look at a cool tool for use in your classroom with your students, and a great way to be able to engage the kids. So let us begin, as we do all good things, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, may everything we do begin with your inspiration and continue with your saving help. Let our work always find its origin in you, and through you reach completion. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. St. John Newman, pray for us. St. Isidore, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Just as a reminder, as always, our webinars are recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel, AoP Tech, tomorrow. And any of the opportunities that we have for engagement, whether they be questions that are asked over the webinar live on the microphone, or that may be asked through the chat window, those opportunities will be recorded as well. If you haven't noticed and you've joined us in the past, we have moved platforms. This is our first opportunity to be able to use the Zoom platform for one of our webinars. So there might be a couple of hiccups as we move along the way, but for you, and you're looking at your screen, you should see over on the right-hand side a participants panel where you would see a list of participants. Right under the participants, you will see a couple of different options that you have. One of the ones that may come into play tonight is the ability to raise or lower your hand. This will indicate that you have a question if we are an opportunity to be able to provide you time to be able to ask any questions. As we go through and as we learn more and become more familiar and comfortable with the platform, we will certainly look at the opportunity to use the other options even more in our future offerings. The bottom portion of the participant platform you may need to enable. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's likely a menu bar along the bottom, and if you select chat, you will have a chat window that will open up on your screen. And that is where we are going to have our back channel this evening. Over our past couple of webinars, we have tried different avenues for back channels to be able to model for you different tools that you have the opportunity to be able to use in your classroom or in your own professional development experiences. This evening, we will be using the embedded chat feature. And we already have Alyssa and Annabelle and a few others that have already dropped in messages in the chat window. Please be aware that you can send messages publicly to everyone who was on the webinar, or privately to one individual. And this evening, we are certainly excited once again to be able to present to you Google Sheets. And presenting this evening is Mr. Aaron Heinz, one of our great technology integration coaches here out of the Office of Catholic Education. And Aaron, we are certainly grateful and appreciative of all the time and preparation that you've been able to put in for this presentation. So I'm going to hand it off to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and you can take it away. Aaron?
Thank you, Bill, and thank you to all the participants who are joining us this evening. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us tonight. So I'm actually going to start tonight by doing a quick poll. Let's see here. So this is the first one. So you should see a little box that pops up on your screen, and it says, which Google tool can help students best analyze weather temperatures collected over a period of time? And go ahead and choose the answer which you think is correct. I'll give it another 10 seconds. We have 7 coming in, 11, 12, 13. This is very exciting. This is the first time we're using the polling feature in a live format. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. And we see 100% got it correct. Yes, indeed, that would be Google Sheets. And that is going to be the topic for our presentation today. So what is Google Sheets? Google Sheets is Google's version of Microsoft Excel. And it truly is modeled very similar in terms of its layout, its function, even as far down as to the color scheme. We notice that Google Sheets is green. Microsoft Excel also uses a green color scheme. And essentially what Google Sheets is a web-based spreadsheet. And so just like every other Google product, Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Slides, all the work is done in the cloud, which is great because that means it's available on any device. There are Google Sheets apps for both the Android and iOS or Apple operating system. Google Sheets, much like all the other Google programs, can be customized with add-ons. And essentially, it's a great way to organize data, to analyze data, to create charts and graphs. It can perform everything from basic math, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, all the way to complex calculations involving functions, macros, custom scripts, and pivot tables, oh my. And just like all the other Google applications, we have the built-in collaboration and sharing features, which I think really makes these tools usable and friendly in a group environment. And just like in Docs and in Slides, you have the ability to customize the permissions. So you can provide users with full access to your Google Sheets where they can edit, modify, and change, view-only access, comment-level access, and we can even get down to blocking out certain aspects of your Google Sheets so they can see some things but not everything. So a lot of things cross-platform from Google Sheets to Drive and Docs are very similar. So today we're really going to be focusing on the Google Sheets specific things. And today I have a couple kind of focus statements for myself. So the first thing that I really want to focus on is, of course, introducing you to Google Sheets, what it is, how it works, how we can use it. Secondly, and really kind of our main focus today, is preparing you for the Google Level 1 exam. Now that Level 1 certification exam focuses on basic features. Google Sheets, much like Excel, is super powerful and can do some incredible things. And personally, this was one of the things that I was really hesitant about. These were things that scared me. You know, I knew about Excel, I knew about Google Sheets, but I never really used them. Sure, I dropped in my class list here and there, or if I used a Google Forms, I knew I could export it into a spreadsheet, but I didn't do anything else because honestly, it was overwhelming. But for today's task, we're really only looking at the skills that you are going to need to know to pass the test. And so for that, we're going to take a nice, easy, go slow approach. And I'm going to walk you through some of the important aspects that are going to show up on that Google certification exam. At the end of this presentation, I will provide a link that has, in fact, you will get it in your emails tomorrow, that has study resources, including flashcards and sample test questions. If you're viewing this webinar on our YouTube page, all those documents will be in the link down below. So, what do you need to know for Level 1 certification? Like I mentioned, we're going to cover some basic terminology. and an overall general familiarity with Google Sheets. Second, we're going to look at how to perform some simple operations, such as being able to sum, average, sort data, and create a chart. Now, for the certification test, as Alyssa mentioned in her first video, which you can check out on our YouTube page, she mentioned that the Google certification test is comprised of 2 sections. There are 20 multiple choice / matching questions, and then 10 scenarios. And in the scenarios, you're required to perform a specific task within a Google product. And I will definitely show you some examples of both the questions and some scenarios as we go through. So thinking about the different Google products and, of course, the length and time of the test, you can expect probably 4 to 6 questions in the matching multiple choice section that will deal with Google Sheets. And I would wager probably 1 to 2 scenarios in the certification exam. So with that said, we're going to go to our second question. And our second question is, Google Sheets can be downloaded in the following formats. And already I can sense across the interwebs the anticipation of this question and the strange .xl, .rtf, cs. I have no idea what these are and how in the world I'm going to memorize these things for this certification test. So, ladies and gentlemen, as teachers, I feel it is important to note, oftentimes I feel like we view tests as whether you know the information or not. And that does not have to be the case. In fact, when you are taking your Google certification exam, and I do this myself, there is no restriction to the use of external resources or notes. So if you're taking notes today during this presentation, and by the way, congratulations to the people that selected the answer E. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So if you're taking notes, you are welcome to use them. And in fact, when I have to recertify, and I will do that in a few months here, I will actually take the test with my Chromebook and probably my iPad sitting next to me. So that way, as I go through the test, I will look up answers. And so this is a great question that I would look up. This is not something that I know off the top of my head, and this is not something that I would encourage any of you to memorize off the top of your head. And in fact, what I would do is when I see that question, I would open up my Google Sheets on my either Chromebook or my iPad, and I'd come over here to where it says File and Download As, and all of a sudden I can see all the different file types, and that would give me the answer to that question. So don't feel as though you have to memorize all of this information. It's, can you find the answer? Now keep in mind, we do have 180 minutes for the certification test, so you do want to be mindful of your time and not to, if there's a question that you want to mark and come back later, that's a great test-taking strategy. And certainly knowing that given that there are 20 questions followed by 10 scenarios, the scenarios are going to take up the bulk of your time. But I just wanted to use that question to illustrate the point that not everything has to be something that you memorize. And in fact, when we get to the scenarios part of today's webinar, one of the things I want to mention is the fact that there are multiple pathways to the correct answer. There is not one way to do this. And a lot of times you will see multiple pathways, multiple solutions. They're all okay. It's all that Google's looking for is that end result. And just as a little note, the Explore tool, which is one of the new Google features, will be your friend when you take the exam. So now that we know a little bit about Google Sheets, what the test is looking for, let's get started with some basic terminology. So now I zoomed in, and as I zoom in, I'm doing this because I recognize you guys are watching this on a smaller screen on your devices. My menu bars do change slightly, so I will kind of have to zoom in and zoom out a little bit. So I do apologize for that. So coming across the top of our screen here, we have the Sheets home button. This is where you would see, this would take you back to either the Sheets home screen where you can select different templates or other files that you have opened. We have the title box, the ability to star, and organize our file. And we notice that these are universal across all Google platforms. Moving to the right, we have where it says all changes are saved. This is a great way to see the revision history or all the changes to the document. We have the view history. This is, you can see, and this is great if you're working on group documents. You can see who has jumped in to take a look at your file, the ability to make comments, and the ability to share. We have our fairly standard menus here, and I'm not going to go into them. I'm going to focus on the shortcuts toolbar because this is really what you're going to use on a regular basis and what you're going to use on the exam. So starting from the left-hand side, we have the undo and the redo buttons. And these are things that I absolutely love as being part of the digital generation, the ability to hit Control-Z and undo the last thing I did. And I find that I use this feature a lot in the Google Sheets. And I do use the keyboard shortcut Control-Z often. Of course, we have the ability to print. And then we have paint format. And what this does, if you have formatting, say text that's in a different size font or bolded, you can copy that to another text of your document without having to manually change each one individually. We have the ability to zoom. And these are all, this whole menu right here, very standard across all the Google applications. So it's right here where we get to our first change for Google Sheets. And this is how we format numbers. So for example, let's say I have a series of numbers. So 1, 2, actually, 1, 2, 3. Oh, and I'm just going to do a really cool trick. I'm going to drag and drop. I'm going to talk a little bit more what I just did. And because so here I have the ability to, maybe I would like to use dollar signs and say, hey, these are all going to be units of money. Perhaps they're percents. This button right here decreases decimal place. So maybe I only want to see 1 decimal. Maybe I'd like to see 4 decimals. And then we have the drop down. And so this is if I just want to say, no, it's just a general number. We can get rid of the decimals. We have currency, date, zip code, a number of different options for our format number settings. Moving across to the right, we have our font, both style, size, including ones such as, I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit so I get my menus back here. We have the ability to bold, italicize, strike through. Of course, we can change the color of our font. And then moving into the next section, we see a little dividing line. These are our cell data boxes. So here I have the ability to change the fill color. So if I want to make one cell red, another cell green, we can do that using this fill color box. The next option is our borders. So we can choose to make dark borders of different colors, different sizes. Now our next option is grayed out, and it's grayed out until I select 2 things. And so I'm going to come up here, I'm going to select these 2 cells, and notice that box turns on now. And what it does is it allows us to merge our cells together. And so this is really helpful for titles or formatting. As we're working in our sheets, it really allows things to be clarified. I have to zoom out a little bit more to get back the next set of menu options. So we have, and you actually saw me use it briefly, the ability to align our text. So whether we'd like to align it to the left or to the right or center it. And in cells that are rather, if I expand one of these cells to make it bigger, we could say, well, maybe I want my data to be in the middle, or maybe I want it to be at the very top or the very bottom. So how it's aligned both horizontally and vertically. We have the ability, when we are typing in text, so if I say, hello, my name is Aaron, we notice the fact that it's run into, it has disappeared. And so we have different options. So I can choose to extend that text across multiple cells. I can choose to wrap it within the cell, or I can cut it off. And this is nice, especially if you're dealing with lots of data information. Another helpful tool, especially for identifying categories, is the ability to rotate how our text is laid out. So we can put it up at an angle, a different angle, vertically, and so we can change all those different, let's go that way. And then we can make it upside down, all sorts of different ways. Moving to our final buttons, these are some advanced features, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit later, but I'll name them for right now. We have the ability to insert links, the ability to insert comments within a specific cell, insert chart, the filter button. This is a really important button, and also the function button, another important button. Now over here on the far right, I do have the ability, if you need more space, you can collapse some of the menus up here and just get your shortcuts. So now that we have learned the different buttons that are on the top, the one thing that I would like to show you, and hopefully you can see this, and if you cannot see the Quizlet screen that I just popped up there, somebody in the back channel, let me know, please. I found a really nice Quizlet, and what I like about it is this person went to the time to include all the different pictures, and so this is something as you're studying, preparing, you can use the flashcards, you can play games, and so this is a really great tool to help you prepare for the exam. So, as we move down in our page, we have on the left-hand side a little FX, and this is our formula bar. And you notice that wherever I click, it indicates the contents of that current cell and allows us to add or create more things into that cell. So if I'd like to change that number, I can do that in the formula bar. As we work our way down the page, and I already kind of used some of this language, when I was talking about the different boxes, I was calling them cells. And so for example, this is cell A1, and we identify that by the columns at the top. So these are our columns, so column A, column B, column C. And there's a little drop down here where you can have a lot of different options in there. And then we have rows, row 1, row 2, row 3, etc. So each cell, we have A1 would be this cell, B2, C4, etc. And this is how we reference those cells. Now, when I'm setting a range, when I would like to grab, I can select, and then I have a range of cells, and I can manipulate things, I can reference those things, but a range is just a selection of cells. That's all it is. And if I want to select everything in my spreadsheet, there's a little button right here. It's not even labeled, but if I click it, you'll notice it highlights everything on this page. Now, this is a spreadsheet, but within a spreadsheet, we can have multiple sheets. And we see these down below. And the question is, why would I want multiple sheets? And the reason being is just like within a book, we have chapters on different topics. Different sheets allows us to separate our data and allow us to stay organized. So down in the bottom, I have a little plus button. So if I'd like to add a new sheet, all I have to do is click plus, and we see as I add them, they are added here. The button to its right allows me to quickly jump between different sheets very quickly. Of course, I can drag and drop sheets with a click of my mouse. And each sheet has a little tiny gray arrow, and that tells us that, hey, there's a menu here. And when I click on that little arrow, we see the fact that I can delete, duplicate, copy, color code. I can even protect or hide or manually move the sheets. And if you have many, many sheets, and let's see if I add a whole bunch here, notice that I have a little option here where I can scroll to the left or to the right. And then in our bottom right-hand corner is where we find the Explore tool. And we're going to come back to that very shortly. So now that we've discussed, and I have to find there it is. Now that we discussed the terminology of both the toolbars and the menus, I have another really excellent tool for you. This is a second Quizlet. And again, let me know if you can't see this. And this provides the definition again with pictures. And I thought the person that designed this, Jay Trainer, did an excellent job. And so I will provide you the link to this Quizlet. Again, you can play it on your own. It's free. Quizlet works on all your mobile devices. So whether you're sitting there watching TV and during the commercial break, you can sit there and study and prepare for your level 1 exam. But now what I'd like to do is I'd like to focus in on the cells, because of course the cells is where all the magic happens. So we already identified how we name and reference cells by their column and row location. So let's talk about how you can copy and paste. So certainly if I select a cell, I can right click and copy. And we notice that when I do that, Google identifies that this is the cell that I am copying. So if I paste, there we go, and I can use both the right click or I can use my keyboard shortcuts Control C and Control V, which I do prefer. I also have the ability that depending on where I move my mouse, and you can see, let me make this a little bigger so we can all see it. There we go. Oop, too big. Just a bit. That depending on where I move my mouse within the cell, I get a little hand feature. And so I can take that hand and I can, wherever I see that dotted line, I can move that to. And so I can move that up or down or left and right. I also have the ability with something called the fill handle. And this is a really cool tool. In the bottom right-hand corner, we have this little box. And when I move my mouse there, I get a little plus sign. And so if I would like to say extend this, I can grab that and now I have the numbers going this way. Or I can take and I can go like this. Now the trick that I did when I first made this is I started a pattern, and Google's really good at recognizing patterns. Now if I just select one cell, it's going to repeat that last one. So I'm going to hit Control Z. But if I select more than one cell, it tells Google that, hey, I want to continue this pattern, and we see an easy way to continue a pattern. So obviously, what can we put in cells? Now, obviously, we can put numbers in cells. That's good. I illustrated earlier by typing that we can put text in our cells, and we can even select a hyperlink, and we can put a hyperlink, and that could be a link to the internet out to the world, or we could put a link within a spreadsheet to another spreadsheet or to another sheet within our own spreadsheet right here. So we can link within the document and externally. Of course, just like with any Google Doc, we can change the font, the color, the size, the bolding of any of these cells or the material that's in them. And we also can do this through a tool called conditional formatting, which is a really exciting tool that you will need to know about for the level 2 certification. So for today's purposes, I am not going to go into any more details about it, but it is a really exciting tool that when you move on to level 2, let me know and I'll be happy to share it with you. So now let's talk about the operations. What kind of math can I do in this cell? So certainly, if I type the equal sign, and that's going to be how we start. Anytime we want to do a formula and operation, you're usually going to start off by typing the equal sign. I could just say something like 2 plus 2. And we see the fact that it equals 4, or I could say equals 8 times 8. And I love the little preview that it provides. And so now, when I click on these cells, I can see in the formula bar, I can see what's actually in there, which is really exciting. Now, instead of typing the numbers, I also have the ability to say, let's say I want to do equals, and I want to say, well, give me the sum of cell A14. And now it might be hard to see, but on my screen, it's slightly highlighted, cell A14. I'm going to say plus, let's go B14. we say it's 18, but if I come in here and if I change this value, let's say I'll add, we'll make it 10, we notice the fact that this automatically updates, which is really cool. Now, certainly we can do that manually, typing in the cell what I want to add, or I can select a series of cells, and now I have many different options. When I come over to my toolbar, and in fact I'm going to zoom out so the tool pops back, I mentioned that there was a function tool. And these are going to be the 5 functions that Google's looking for you to know how to do for that level 1 test. The 5 functions are sum. So it says, hey, you're adding up all these cells. And I say, yes, I do. I hit enter. And then it tells me in the function bar what I'm looking at and the total. I can also come over here and select the average. The average is 13. Or, of course, we have to count how many numbers am I counting. So there are 7 numbers from A11 to A18. And then the min and max. Now, I can do that using the formula tab over here. I also, in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, when I do this, let me see if I can zoom in here. When I do this, if I select some cells, it's going to tell me, hey, just to let you know the average of these, the count, but I can't drag and drop these. But that's where I'm going to use my Explore tool. So let's say I wanted to know what the sum of these were. So I could select it and come down to my Explore tool, and then anywhere I grab, let me zoom out just a little bit so we can see this. So anywhere I grab the sum, I can say, well, the sum's here. I can grab the average, my min, my maximum, this data, and it's going to do it for me automatically, which is really, really exciting. And like I said, the Explore tool is going to be your best friend on that certification exam. And do not worry about using it. You are encouraged to use it. And of course, it automatically put in all the formulas here for me, so I know exactly that this sum is coming from these numbers right here. So the next thing I need to do is I need to talk about how to sort and filter data. A lot of times when we're looking at lots of data, it can be overwhelming. So I've jumped into a new page here, and these are the tallest buildings in the world. And let's say I want to sort them based upon their alphabetical name. That's something that as a teacher I did often. So what I can do is I'm going to highlight all my data. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to use this button right here. This is the filter button. And when I select this, it made this little kind of triangle appear in each of these columns. And so if I want to say, let's say I want to sort this column by the building name, but of course, I want to make sure that all the rest of this data follows along with that sort function. So what I can do is I'm going to select this, and I can say sort A to Z, and we notice that everything else follows along. And this is the magic of the undo and then the redo button. We see the fact that the data does change, and so in fact 23 Marina was built in 2012, and we can see that data down here as well. So the data followed when we clicked on the sort feature, which is really cool and a very useful tool. So now how do I filter? Maybe let's say I'm not interested in any of these buildings that were built before the turn of the year 2000. So I can click on my little filter button here under the year built, and I can just deselect any one of these buildings prior to the year 2000, hit OK, and now it's trimmed my data to just the most current buildings. And so this is a really helpful tool, and this is going to be something that you will see in the scenario option oftentimes. So, in fact, let's look at a scenario here. So, a common scenario, what would a scenario look like? Now, I provided for you a couple questions for that would look like the multiple choice or the matching questions. Now, I will say one note about that. Google does have a bad habit of the multiple choice questions having multiple select correct answers, where you might have to select 2 or 3 answers per question. But here's an example of a practicum question. And just so we all are clear, this is a question that Google has provided, so I'm not giving any sort of secret or inside information. This is one that they have provided as a sample. And so this would be one in that second half of the test where they say, okay, we provided you some data, in this case about a presidential election, from a Google form. They want you to view it in a spreadsheet, sort the sheet based on the first name, so we used our filter function to do that. And now it'd like us to create a pie chart that represents their favorite candidate. And again, all of these sample questions, this scenario, and all the other ones that I have provided will be in the resources that you will receive in your email tomorrow, or that are in the link below if you're on YouTube. So how do we go about creating a chart? So let me actually zoom out just a little bit. So I would like to create a chart of this data here. And I can do that a couple of different ways. One of the ways is to go up and click the Insert Chart button. And that will provide us and we'll come back to this screen in a second. So that's one way to get a chart. But my favorite way, delete chart, go away. My favorite way is when I've selected this data, I can come down to my Explore button. And not only has it provided me the sum and average and what it thinks it might want me to know, but as I scroll, it provides me multiple different charts automatically. And so from here, I can choose to view the chart and see the different ones to see if, well, I like this one better, or I like this one better. Or I can insert that chart. Now, so notice we got to the same place, whether I click the Explore button or whether I come up and click the Insert Chart button, we got to the same chart. Now from here, maybe this isn't the chart I want. I can choose lines or bars or bars coming from the side. And this is really where you can customize how your data, what's going to be the best way to represent your data. You can choose to label the axes. You can customize the style, the layout, all the different colors. But the great thing is you don't need to know any of that for the Google certification test. All you're going to need to know is to highlight the data, find the chart that it wants, and then oftentimes, and I believe in our sample, it asks to have it move to a separate page. So what we can do is, because right now this is a little cumbersome, we have our chart and our data right next to each other, but maybe I want to have this on a separate sheet. I click the 3 little dots. Remember, that's Google's universal, hey, there's a menu here. And here, I can download, delete, or move the chart to its own sheet. And now it has kind of moved it away from my data and moved it onto its own sheet here as well. So now that you've gone through all these things, I have one additional resource for you, and this is using quizzes. And I absolutely love quizzes. It's a great way to collaboratively assess whether your students, to play it for homework, or to just do one on your own. And this is a great quizzes Google Sheets. Again, this is not my own. I found it, and I will be sharing the link in the documents. But it's definitely one that I like the questions, and I thought it would be really helpful to go through and play this to prepare yourself for the Level 1 certification exam. So, in addition to the sample test and working document, all of the resources will be available on this sheet here. This is the document, the link that will be posted below, bit.ly/AOP sheets, all lowercase. These are the 2 Quizlets I mentioned earlier, the quizzes that I just showed you right now. Google provided a cheat sheet, and this is the document that I have scoured the internets for as many sample test questions specifically on Google Sheets that I could find. And I did put them in this document. You can feel free to take a look at that. And then also I wanted to make sure that I cited my resources because I relied on a lot of other people that provided some great tips and the data charts. And so I linked them below. And these are also great tools to use if you'd like to further your knowledge. In fact, Alice Keeler just put an article up today that talked about the 5 Google Sheets essentials. And in fact, she mentions being able to freeze, merge cells, and these are really helpful and usable features that are definitely good to know, but may not be on the level 1 test. So I provide these all here for you. And with that being said, I hope that this has been a brief introduction to Google Sheets that will hopefully ease that barrier to entry. And so as you begin to play and explore in Google Sheets, you can do so with confidence, knowing that it's just a few terms and a few tools that you need to learn in order to pass the Google Level 1 certification test. And with that, I'm going to pass my screen back to Bill because I know we have an exciting presenter on deck.
Well, thanks so much, Aaron. Thanks for all of your work. That was great, wonderful overview, and certainly really key pieces there for the Google Sheets portion of the certification exam. So thank you. So this year we started a new feature for our webinars called the EdTech tool Snapshot, and really what we wanted to be able to do was to be able to reach out to you, the teachers, as practitioners in the classroom, to be able to find out some of the tools that you are passionate about. And this evening, we are very excited to have with us Denise Pimpinella from St. Mary's Interparochial School. And Denise has taught at St. Mary's in Center City since 2007. She currently teaches grades 6, 7, and 8 Spanish and honors math. And she also currently teaches 6th grade religion. Today, we are very excited to have Denise with us to share how she uses FlipGrid in her classroom. For a detailed review of FlipGrid and some of Denise's favorite features, be sure to check out her article on aoptech.org that will be published at the end of this month. And Denise, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thanks again for all of your time and preparation. Feel free to take the screen, and I can see your screen, so you are off and running.
Great. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Denise, and I am joining you from South Philadelphia, which has been a little crazy today. So thank you for having me. I started using FlipGrid this year in my classes, mostly because it was free this summer, and I didn't have any more excuses to not get in front of the camera. I am a Spanish teacher. I teach Spanish 1, and my students often struggle with using the target language, especially in speaking activities. And if I'm not watching them, they're probably defaulting to English. And so I needed a tool that I could formatively assess and get them in the target language. That being said, I don't only use it in my Spanish classes, I use it for other classes as well. So if you want to open a separate screen, if you're that savvy and do this along with me, you can, or you can just follow my screen. So I'm at flipgrid.com. And what FlipGrid is simply it's the leading video discussion platform designed to amplify student voices. Students can access the grids that you post either in Classroom, you can share it on Remind, you can share them in many different places, and any device that has access to a camera and a microphone, so a laptop, a netbook, a tablet, a phone. So if you're coming to sign up, you're just going to simply sign up for free here. They're going to ask you for some simple things. If you already have a Google account, you use that. If you don't and you have a Microsoft account, you would use that. If you don't have either, you probably have to sign up for a Google account and then go from there. So I already have an account, so I'm just going to go to Educator Login. I practice the very unsafe passing of saving my passwords. So here we have what your educator screen would look like when you get here. You have I have activities, I can see my grid, I can make mixtapes. I'm going to talk about all these different things and options that are here. Like I said, I started using this officially in September of 2018. So I may not know everything, but I can tell you since then, my students and I have logged 22 hours and 22 minutes of engagement time, which they define as the total amount of time that we've spent in FlipGrid using and creating videos. I go to my activity, you can see I have 4 grids created. I have 13 topics. These are the number of videos. I didn't post all those include my students. And we did 61 videos this week, and I only used it in 1 class. So there is a lot there. So my grids are separated by grade bands. So I have a grid for my 8th grade, I have a grid for my 6th grade, and I have a grid for my 7th grade. And then I made one today for you guys, so you could have an opportunity to use FlipGrid today even. You have, if I were to click on my 7th grade grid here, you'll see I have different topics underneath. So I have a topic for introductions, and it went with my vocabulary unit, Uno B. I have a new vocab unit, so we did a FlipGrid on their favorite classes. And then I used it in my math class as well for them to explain their math problems. When I click on any of these, I get my educator screen, and I can see all of my student videos. I can see how many times they were viewed. I can see likes, all that kind of stuff. And I am going to show you what a FlipGrid would look like. So if we go to, sorry, I opened a lot of tabs. You have, nope, sorry. I have, so if I were to go to my introduction one, I created my own video for students to see in response to the prompt all the way at the top of the page. So it said, welcome to our classroom grid, the space where we'll learn together and share our ideas. Introduce yourself with 30 seconds or less in Spanish. You start with yo soy. So since I posted first, which I think is a great practice, you will see my video here.
Hola clase, me llamo señora Pimpinella. Yo soy inteligente, ordenada, estudiosa, sociable y trabajadora. Adiós, nos vemos.
So in this video, you can record a quick video of yourself, and I'll do one with you today. And then you take a selfie at the end. Students have the options, and you can either do it if you like them or not. This becomes the thumbnail picture in their FlipGrid. In the grid, and they can add stickers, you can allow them to write on it, you can do whatever you like. This is the educator screen, so when I see this, I could have created a rubric here, and I could have scored them for it if I wanted to give it for a score. I could leave specific feedback, or I could reply directly to the student with a video. So if I click the reply button, it'll take me to a screen to record my own reply. Hi, everybody. So here's my video. I could record it, could put a sticker in, I could do whatever I like there. I'm not gonna actually record one right now. And then I can see that this video has a response, so a student responded to my video as well. It's really an exciting tool. I really like it because it allows students to be themselves. As a Spanish teacher, it makes them use the language. But here is our AoP tech. So if I wanted to create a grid, I just click plus new grid. Here is our grid that I opened for today. It has 2 topics here. I would simply, create a new topic if I wanted to create a new topic. This is the topic I had planned to use for today. So I just want to show you what the screen looks like. So if I look at edit topic, I can make a question here. Give it a title. So I call this Lifelong Learners because we're all taking a class today. I gave you up to 1 minute and 30 seconds to talk in your video. You can do things as short as 15 seconds and up to 5 minutes, so depending on what your class needs. I offered you a tip If you would like to scaffold this assignment for students, you could give them a tip. I said, just look at the camera and speak. It isn't hard, I promise. You can pick your day that you would like this to show up in your classroom. So if you like to film everything ahead of time, do everything at once, if you're a good planner, you can decide when you want them to display. You can type whatever text you would like here, prompting, directions, questions, ideas. You could put a detailed rubric here if you wanted for students. You have the choice when you display a topic whether you want to monitor the video or not. I have already chosen that this grid has a public domain with it. It does not have to be public. If we go back to my student grids, these are all of my students, and this is what their screen looks like. But these are domain saved. I have limited them to people that have the domain for St. Mary Interparochial School. So I've limited those to what are able to be seen. We have an active topic. You could choose to make it inactive or freeze them, especially if you're just trying to grade them. You can launch the freeze date too. So if you wanted it to firmly close at a specific date for them to put their assignments up, you can. Topic resources, you have the option of including a video. You could record your own video. You can select an image, a GIF, or an emoji of your choice. It's really up to you. You could link out to specific information that you wanted students to read. You can let people use stickers and drawings. I usually let my students because it's intrinsically motivating to them if they can personalize their work. This one's currently public. We could make them private. You can allow people to like videos. You can display the number of videos they receive. So that's up to you. That's your choice. You can allow people to reply to each other. You can have students put a title in. You can provide basic feedback, which would be here. This is where you could use a rubric. You could customize your feedback. You can add additional criteria if you wanted to, and then you can edit each of these functions as you go along. And then I'm just going to update my topic. So now I have this topic, and where am I going to put it? So the question, if we go to share topic right here, you can share with the class. I can share it with individuals by adding them as guests. I can just take this link or QR code and put it directly in Google Classroom on Remind, or embed the code on a personal website that you have. So I will ask Erin to add our code, or if you want to write this down quickly for yourself, the code to this grid is A9FFE5C5. And if we go to this grid, which I have open, you can just record. I asked you, you see up here, this is what the students would see and what you'll see, what my directions are. You see the GIF, you see the tip, and we're just gonna simply record a video really quickly. You have to be logged in because it gives you a name. So I'm logged in, I picked my name. I'm just gonna get a video. And I'm simply gonna press record. Hi everyone, I enjoyed being with you tonight. I hope that you learned something new. I did, I learned that I talk a lot. Thank you, have a good night. And I'm gonna press pause my recording. If students didn't like it, they could go back. If you like it, you can press next. Hi everyone, I enjoyed being with you tonight. I hope that you learned something new. I did, I learned that I talk a lot. Thank you, have a good night. You have. Hi everyone, I enjoyed being with you tonight. I hope that you learned something new. It's gonna keep talking over you, but you have the cutting, you could trim either side of it, you could put text in. And then the last step is just to simply take a selfie. That's the thumbnail. You can add all these fun stickers over here. My students really like adding hair and eyes, and it doesn't bother me. Some people, it bothers them and they don't do that, but I don't really care. In my classes, I've been using this sticker a lot, and I'm putting them over there. And then I'm just gonna submit. So I'm complete. I have my first video here. Anybody who wants to see it can see it. And I'm just reminded, I got a notification on my phone that somebody has posted in my FlipGrid. So when you set up your original grid, when you set up your original grid, you might choose to edit your grid to either allow for notifications or not. If you don't like a lot of emails, whenever I do these in class, I get like 30 emails at one time. Maybe you turn off notify me or only turn it off for the class and turn it on later. You can allow them to download your videos. And this is the option where you can pick the community type that you want. So you could limit this to the school domain only if you were worried about sharing things publicly on the web. You could also add a password that you could share only with parents, so only parents and guardians could see the work of your students. There's a lot more features here up here. These mixtapes in the article, I made mixtapes for you to see different examples of it being used in math class, Spanish, and religion. They're long, I'm not gonna show them to you, but they're here. So this is what the grid looks like. These are fun because you can send these out directly too. There's a little plus sign for this code and parents can get those directly. I did password protect mine so they all have a password with them. So again, they're easy to use. I like FlipGrid because the kids like it. Most of them are smiling, you can see in these pictures. And they get excited. So thank you everyone for listening. I know I'm forgetting things, but I can't remember what I forgot. So thank you.
Well, Denise, thank you so much. That was great. And FlipGrid really, I threw it into the comments, but it really is one of those great tools that gives you an opportunity to be able to provide a voice to every student. And, you know, especially when you can engage kids in school and out of school, you know, to allow them to get comfortable in providing feedback in their own opinion, and especially in the language classroom. It's really wonderful. So thank you so much for all of your time and preparation in presenting that cool tool and a quick overview of that. Certainly appreciate it. And for everybody, I want to make sure that I acknowledge one piece for today that I am certainly most grateful for. If you were following the news today, you likely saw all of the activity that was taking place in South Philadelphia, and we won't get too deeply into it, but both Denise and Aaron were affected in some way by that today, and specifically Denise, who was on lockdown for a couple of hours today. So we appreciate not only the time and preparation for this evening over the past number of days and weeks, but most specifically in regards to today. And you know, we all deal with unique situations on a daily basis when you walk into work, and you never know what can happen. But certainly, I appreciate both the willingness to continue with our webinar this evening and the professionalism that you both exuded this evening. It was wonderful, a great learning opportunity for all of us. So thank you both very much. And in looking forward, certainly, as always, looking towards next month and our next opportunity to be able to come together and learn in this format. Our next webinar will be offered on Wednesday evening, February 13th. Annabelle will be taking a look at YouTube, and YouTube is a part of the Google certification exam, and certainly an important piece of the platform to be able to know. And also looking forward to looking at another cool tool, and next month will be Buncee, provided by Trish Carbone from St. Simon and Jude. So look forward to the registration on our website at aoptech.org. And as always, we do encourage you to follow us across all social media platforms, and more specifically to be able to engage not only with us, but with your colleagues, to be able to share, to be able to resource, and to be able to show some of the things that you are doing in your classroom. We have a wonderful community here in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and in the greater Philadelphia region, and a lot of wonderful people to be able to not have to recreate the wheel all the time, and really lean on each other for support, for opportunities, for ideas, and for feedback. And we can do all of that throughout our various social media platforms, given the size of our district. And if you haven't seen it yet, one last thing that I will plug is our EdCamp professional development learning opportunity that will be at the end of February. That is going to be hosted at Lansdale Catholic High School. For more information on that, again, please visit aoptech.org. And with that, I want to thank all of you, most importantly, for joining us this evening. I know some of you were also affected by the events in South Philadelphia today, and we are grateful for your attendance, and for all of you who spent a day today in the classroom working with your students and wanted to be able to join us this evening for an opportunity to enrich yourself as an individual, but also to be able to enrich you professionally. We are certainly very grateful for the time that you have given up this evening. So with that, once again, happy 2019. We look forward to a great rest of the month of January and looking forward to Catholic Schools Week and to February. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. Have a great end of the week and wonderful weekend. Look out for that snow and go Eagles.